Mark Blair here. Great to have you joining me this morning as we take a look at our 10 minutes of morning calm. And today we continue on with our conversation around conviction, which is such a fascinating word, such a fascinating word. We've been looking at the story of creation, the ebb and flow of that story, and how that story is about what God is doing in our lives. And one of the things that starts to be, maybe the word is unleashed, it starts to be unleashed are these convictions, these deep convictions. And one we talked about yesterday is born of our intellect, born of our thought. We start to think in new ways and not get so worried about always being consistent as much as, this truth of the search of truth. Like we're always searching for what's true, and we're allowing God to help us evolve that way. And that's a real important conviction that matters a lot in our lives. And the second form of conviction I want to talk about today deals with our hearts. Deals with our hearts. Now, it's interesting, as you look at Christian New Church theology and the use of this word conviction, it's obviously a very deliberate word used by Emanuel Swedenborg, who was the theologian who sort of formed our big parts of our faith. And he said, yeah, conviction is really important. And conviction is such an interesting word. It's fascinating to me that it's different than the word commitment. Now, obviously, commitment is incredibly important. Conviction adds a slightly different spin to it. So this conviction time where we start to act with a conviction, and it's a conviction born of love. We start to act with love, a conviction born of love, is a really interesting thing to watch. Interesting watching ourselves, and interesting to watch in other people. So I'd ask us to maybe take this little journey together. Let's think of it two ways. There's the initial conviction where I really get this conviction that that God really is the God of love. And some of you commented on that yesterday beautifully, which is so true. And it's this movement away from a punishing God and this movement towards a God of love. And that, boy, can we just rest in that place? We can just rest and we can just feel ourselves held, and the world is a much brighter place when we come from that perspective than from the idea of a punishing, harsh God. Strict Christian New Church perspective has God can't even frown. Like, just think about that for a second. So, all right, so that's one conviction there, one conviction around love. And a second conviction around love is kind of interesting. So the first is, here's God's love, and here we are, and we get to accept that God's love, and God's love always holds us, always has held us. God is not interested in like beating us down. He's interested in raising us up. He's not interested in condemning us. He's interested in being a healing force in our lives. Like, that's the whole thing why we're here in this life. And then once we get that, I feel like there's another conviction where we allow God's love to actually convict us. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean this way, folks. Like, where if we allow God's love to convict us, what it means is we'll start to ask the question of, am I really reflecting that love? Am I really being a loving person? What does that love really look like? It's not just this sitting here and receiving God's love, which is a beautiful, incredibly important thing. And I think God goes, that's terrific. And now that we have that, I think what God asks us is, how are you going to reflect that love back out there into the world? How are you going to take this thing that we've received, allow it to convict us, and then start to allow that conviction, as it were, to move us out there into the world? Am I being loving? Am I being loving? Am I being loving? And probably the simplest test, I think, is this. If you think about resentment for a second, and resentment is total poison, and it's really challenging, because there are times where people do things where resentment is actually a fairly legitimate response to it. But we can't live there. Nothing good is ever born of resentment. Just think about that in your life. I mean, that's just a truism, right? And so if we allow God's love to convict us, that means, all right, so that resentment is not good. I want to stay with it. I want to sort of cultivate it. I want to tell other people about it. I want to allow it to grow and fester. I think like God's going like, that's not really going to serve you very well, or serve other people very well. So if we allow God's love to convict us, it means that we're able to take that resentment and we're able to just push it aside as best we can with God's help, with humble prayer, and instead think about this goodwill. Just can we bring goodwill? And the more, the older I get, the more that goodwill word becomes increasingly important. You want to be open to love and allow love to convict you. Love will convict you. What will convict you to do? What will sort of call you to do? Well, first key step always is goodwill. Can I just simply bring goodwill into the world, wishing well for other people, wishing well for those for whom I even have disagreement, and especially wishing well for those with whom I harbor a deep resentment. Now, that doesn't mean those resentments, with a click of the fingers, just go away. That's not how it works. God doesn't do that for us. What God speaks to us in the opportunities he puts in front of us, that we'll have opportunities to continually push that aside and opportunities to continually, from goodwill, sort of step out there into the world. So that's what I'd ask us to think about today, folks, would be let God's love in, and then let that love convict you a little bit. Let it sort of, maybe there's even a little whiff of guilt in there, which isn't always bad. We don't want to live there. Guilt, you get to feel guilty for 90 seconds. After that, it's all a big bad story. But maybe just a little whiff of guilt of like, oh, yeah, not really being a loving person in this environment. I'm not really holding goodwill in my heart for this person or this group or that group. And just know that's what the call is. That's what the opportunity is here, is that conviction from love. And that's day 5 of creation, where we really start to allow that conviction to transform our lives. So I think it's a pretty cool little word there, and fun to sort of be able to share with you folks on that today. So with that, my friends, what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little meditation, a little prayer, a little blessing. And then if you would like, we go onto Facebook Live. Most of our viewers are on our Facebook Live feeds, though we do this feed to several other places as well. And what we do on New Church Live's Facebook page is we offer comments. And I go over those comments at the end here, and it's just a chance for a little riff, a little conversation back and forth. So you're more than welcome to do that. So as we start here, folks, we're going to do a little meditation. So what I'd ask you to do is get a big breath. And listen to the bell until it stops ringing. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we all forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and bring you peace and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends. So, what you can do now is you can hop onto our Facebook page and leave a little note there. And just a public service announcement before we do this: any of you who live locally, we do have some slots for serving down at St. Francis Inn this afternoon. It would be leaving from the office at 3 p.m. And usually they return around 7:30 p.m. or so. So you're more than welcome to let me know if that has any interest to you. So with that, folks, let's pull up our comments here. All right. Jen writes, good morning. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Jen. And it is have a good chilly day. Kim, good morning to you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Patricia, great to see that heart, that reminder of love all the time. Marcus, great to see you, buddy, and hope you're doing well. Mandy, interesting. Yeah, it is, man. It's like always interesting to think of, it has to have a flip. Like we're just thinking about last night, this great quote I heard from Shane Claiborne talking about churches and young adults. And he said, if we lose this generation, it won't be because we didn't entertain them. It will be because we didn't challenge them. And I think that's true of all of us. Like there's both this part where we have to find a comfort in faith, and then we also have to find a challenge in faith. That's to see some way that is kind of pulling us out there. Good morning. We need to pay attention to the difference between conviction and guilt. Absolutely. Like the difference between love and zeal. Yeah, it's interesting with guilt, Tori, from a Christian New Church perspective. Guilt is considered a tool of hell, which is kind of interesting. Guilt is not good. Sherry, happy day to you too. Carl writes, resentment. My experience with AA that began about a quarter century ago led me to this powerful and transformative teaching. Resentment is toxic to our inner lives. The case is plainly stated in the book, in the big book. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. A person mired in resentment has scant chances of recovering from addiction. Get that out of the way, and the love can shine forth a whole lot more brightly, in my life at least. Yeah, Carl, I'd agree with you. And it's so fascinating too, right? Like the good part's always the default. So we get rid of resentment and good stuff will appear, which I like that. When I'm struggling with resentment, I try to dumb down to simply first do no harm. A little Hippocratic oath there. I like that. Kim writes, please pray for my friend Mike, who is hospitalized and not looking at a good outcome. Sure will. Absolutely will do that, Kim. And Tori closes with, Heavenly Father, we lift you up as a sovereign, knowing you can do all things. Beautiful prayer for Mike here. And you will please bring Mike and his family peace and comfort with whatever the outcome will be. That's beautiful, Tori. Thank you. So, folks, wishing you all the best. God bless, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.